I'd like to welcome everybody back to Alabama Care today. And with us today, we have Mr. Dan Kessler, the Executive Director of Disability Rights and Resources, and Mrs. Christie Stanley, the CARES Act Manager at Disability Rights and Resources. And today we're going to be talking about Disability Rights and Resources as an organization here in Alabama. And we're also going to be talking about the CARES Act. And at this point, I'd like to hand it back over. Mr. Kessler, if you would introduce yourself.
Well, good morning, Alex. I'm Dan Kessler, and I'm Executive Director of Disability Rights and Resources. It's just a pleasure to be with you and the folks on the call today.
Now, are you originally from Alabama?
No, actually, I'm originally from Ohio. I was born in a small town called Lima, Ohio. Then when I was in high school, we moved to Indiana, and so finished high school there. Then I went to Purdue University, finished at Purdue, and then so go Boilers. So then I came down to Florida to go to graduate school. I went to graduate school at Florida State, and then when I left Florida State, I went. My wife and I moved to New Orleans. We were there about 13 years, and so when we left there, we came to Birmingham. So we've been in Birmingham just about as long as we've been anywhere.
Well, very nice. I did see the Purdue University there, and I was wondering how that connection was made.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And Mrs. Stanley, if you would introduce yourself.
Sure. Good morning. I'm Christie Stanley. I'm the CARES Act Manager here at Disability Rights and Resources.
And are you originally from Alabama?
I am. I have lived here my whole life, right here in Jasper, Walker County, and so that's where I've been.
Now, I always like to ask for people originally from Alabama, is it Roll Tide or War Eagle?
That's a tough one, but I'm a Roll Tide.
Roll Tide.
We are a house divided, so we have.
But you make it work.
I found that to be frequent.
Yes.
It's usually like, well, if they're playing each other, it gets really tough, but we always root for, both Alabama teams on days that they're not playing each other. But when it comes down to like the Iron Bowl, it's you sit over there and I'm sitting over here.
Oh, exactly. Mm-hmm. It's game on.
So I kind of want to get into the content. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry, Mr. Kessler.
I was just going to say one thing we learned when we came to Alabama. You had to make a call, on which side you're going to be on. So it's okay. It's the only thing you can't be is neutral. So.
Yeah. I feel like I've been in Alabama for a little over 4 years now, and I feel like the first question I was asked as soon as I crossed the state line was, "Is it Roll Tide or War Eagle?" And I had my youngest brother went to South Alabama and played football there as a wide receiver, and so I could say it's Jaguars, go Jags. So I was a little bit neutral there, and they're like, "That no, on the big day you got to pick, Alabama or Auburn."
So. Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
So I kind of want to get into the meat of it here, and for anybody watching that's not familiar with DRR, if you could give us a little bit of history, maybe behind the movement nationwide, and then also here in Alabama.
Oh, okay. Yes, I'd be happy to. Really, the independent living movement started back in the 70s, with Ed Roberts. I don't know if you're familiar with the story of Ed Roberts, but Ed Roberts was a gentleman who actually he used an iron lung and wanted to go to school and had great difficulty getting into school. But once he got into school, he really achieved quite a bit. And so once he finished, then he was looking for a job. This was in Berkeley, California. He was told he just didn't have any but vocational potential at that time. And so what he did was he was very tenacious. And so what he ended up doing was starting the Berkeley Center for Independent Living. And so there's some controversy depending upon who you talk to about what the first Center for Independent Living is, but certainly the Berkeley Center for Independent Living was one of the very first ones in the country. And so from there, actually, Ed went on to found the World Institute on Disability, and he'd also been the commissioner of the Department of Rehabilitation Services. So I think that that's sort of ingrained into the movement, that sort of experience. And so Disability Rights and Resources, we were founded back in 1980. So we're at 40 years old. We're 40 years old now. And we're really one of the first centers for independent living in the Southeast. We had, at that time, we were founded, we were part of the Alabama Coalition of Citizens with Disabilities, which is a statewide coalition. That was our governing board. And so once we were established, we were actually providing services on a statewide basis with some of our programs. And so eventually, we had worked with some. In fact, Alex, I know you've been to our office. You've been here before. There's an article that appeared in the Birmingham News, and in that article is kind of interesting. The article said, and we still have that up there. The article said, "Clubhouse for the Handicapped." Can you imagine that?
I like that.
That was sort of the thinking back in 1980, and probably nobody, well, Centers for Independent Living, I'm sure, blinked an eye, but a lot of people, members of the public, probably didn't blink an eye. And so that was kind of what the impression was of the media of the Center for Independent Living at that time. And of course, we've evolved, I think, substantially from that. But and then from there, we had worked with. In fact, we were initially under a grant that was to the Department of Rehabilitation Services. And then we were under that umbrella till about 1992. And at that time, in 1992, then we spun off to be, the funding came directly to the Center for Independent Living. And so really that was a major development in terms of independent living legislation, 1992. So if anybody's a history buff out there and want to learn more about that, certainly look at the Rehabilitation Act of 92, because it was an extremely important year. It also did something else. It established the the State Independent Living Council, and so in each of the states. So, and maybe at some point, Alex, you might want to have somebody come and talk about the State Independent Living Council. I think that would be an excellent topic. But anyway,
Yeah.
So the independent, and so it also cemented the fact that Centers for Independent Living are supposed to be and allowed to do advocacy work, to do systems advocacy work. So as part of our menu of services and as part of our identity. So I think that there are a number of principles that go into independent living and centers for independent living. There are about 350 centers for independent living across the country. And so we're one of 4 centers for independent living here in the state of Alabama. But those principles, those guiding principles are the things I think that give us our identity and that tie us together in our efforts. And that is the independent living philosophy. And that is that we practice consumer control. And we can talk about that.
Yes, sir.
And we really see that in several different ways. One is when we work with individuals with disabilities on their independent living goals. It's individuals coming to us telling us what they want to achieve. And so it's not what somebody else may have in mind for the individual who comes to us. If you have an independent living goal you want to work towards, that's where we start. That's always our starting point. And so that's a major part of consumer control. Another part of that is our staff composition. And that is a majority of our staff are people with disabilities. And some have visible disabilities, others disabilities you cannot see, as well as our board. Majority of our board members are people with disabilities. And so that's part of that whole idea of consumer control that we talk about. Equal access.
Yes, go ahead. I apologize.
Yeah, equal access is another component of independent living philosophy. And that is providing equal access within our own programs and services, and also in the community, that we work to make the community more accessible to individuals with disabilities in the disability community. And then we also, another term that you'll hear at a Center for Independent Living is the term cross disability. And basically what that means is we work with, if you self-identify as an individual with a significant disability, we will work with you. We don't make you jump through a whole lot of hoops in terms of proving that you're a person with a disability. So those are I think, some of the key components, along with, I had mentioned before, systems advocacy. That's all part of the independent living philosophy as well. And so that was the start of. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, you go ahead. I'm going to hold off for a second here.
Well, I was just going to say that we now have a Center for Independent Living in Mobile that started back in the late 80s. There's a Center for Independent Living in Montgomery that was founded in 2004, and another one that just got off the ground in North Alabama last year.
And I've done a little bit of research on DRR and the website there, and the mission statement really hit home for me. And some of the words that you guys used there, like empowering and independent living. And it wasn't like we're going to necessarily do all of this stuff for you, but it's more of a, you come in with what you want. We're going to help empower you and give you some skills and to navigate that and speak up on your behalf and what you really want. And I think that, I know I love that model. And I have a few questions about some of the things that you were just talking about. But first off, I'd like to acknowledge what you said about the percentage of staff and board that identify as having a disability. And I was speaking with somebody about this the other day, is sometimes it can feel like system changes are happening, and then at the last second it's like, oh, how do we make this accommodating? But to make sure that individuals are part of that process from the beginning. And I think the way that you guys are doing it is perfect. And having a percentage of staff and the board really to be able to put their experience and what they see on a daily basis at the forefront of what's going on. Right. You mentioned consumer control there, and people coming in saying, hey, this is what I want. Can you guys help me get to that point? What would it look like for somebody that wasn't able to communicate in that way, or that was a little tougher for them to communicate?
Yeah, that's a very good question, and I think what's important for us as Centers for Independent Living is to really be able to communicate in a way that people understand what our philosophy is and what our mission is. And so I think that's something at the very beginning, in the very beginning of that dialogue that we have with an individual. We want to talk about what it is they hope to achieve, and so what we'll try to do is use the kind of language that people would understand. And so that's going to vary from person to person. And so I think it's important for us to be able to communicate in such a way so that individuals who come to Disability Rights and Resources, who come in contact with our staff and with our board, that we're able to make those kinds of communications work. And so we will talk with individuals about what it is what their aspirations are, what their goals are, what they want to see achieved, what do they see as some of the barriers in getting there, and how would they like to see us work with them in achieving those goals. It's a two-way discussion. It's not a one-way conversation.
It sounds very much like a coaching call where I'll go into somebody, or someone will go in and say, hey, I'm struggling a little bit with this. I know where I want to get. And then the question, I just want the answer back a lot of times. Just tell me what to do. But I always frustrating when that individual is like, well, why do you want to do that? And they keep asking me why. Yeah. And I'm like, this is tougher than I thought. I just want you to tell me what to do.
Well, and we're constantly talking about that, and that how that relationship, how we see that relationship working, and it is a peer relationship, and I think that's what's central again to our independent living philosophy is that peer relationship, and that is so we want people to feel comfortable that when they come to us, they're talking to somebody who's a peer. And so we don't necessarily have a lot of letters after our names. That's not really the point of independent living. So we have, people with a wide array of I guess, educational attainment, but we don't want that to get in the way of that relationship of that peer relationship. And so that I think is probably what's unique about Centers for Independent Living. Something that you may not find at a whole lot of places.
And I've had the opportunity to meet a few of your team members at DRR here in Birmingham, and everybody that I've met has been awesome. Whether that's from when I walk into the door or I'm sitting down one-on-one with somebody, everybody's just been, it feels very homey, like we're having a conversation. Just how's it going kind of thing. It's very open arms and welcoming.
Right. And we really want to the extent that we can. Obviously, our funders require paperwork, right? But we try to keep as much bureaucracy out of the process and out of our language and our interactions. We try to keep it natural.
Speaking of paperwork, I am going to acknowledge the chat really quick, and I'll kind of lead into that. I want to acknowledge Ryan Alford. He says, watching Thursday morning today. Disability Resource Network says, good morning. Rita B. Patton says, War Eagle, kind of going back to the conversation we were having there. Sarah Williams also says, War Eagle. Ryan Alford once again says, ADRS, Sale Montgomery, Alabama State Office. And Daryl Powell says, good morning, everyone. And the reason I wanted to transition from paperwork in the chat is because Mr. Powell is the executive director of the Alabama Council of Developmental Disabilities, which we are funded through. And I just got done about a week and a half ago doing our quarter report. So, Mr. Powell, I hope that it was up to par there for you.
It's good to have that direct communication, right?
Yes. So please don't put in chat if we messed up on our quarter report. Now, for everybody watching here, these services are very, I think a lot of people would want them, but is there a specific age group that DRR serves?
Alex, we serve people of all ages. So there are no limits in terms of the age groups that we can serve. Now, there may be certain programs where there might be some funding or I'm sorry, some age restrictions, but for the most part, there are no age restrictions. I think the one program that we have that where there is an age restriction is with the is with our employment network, and those are some guidelines set down by the Social Security Administration, and that's the Ticket to Work program. But everything else,
Gotcha.
all of our other programs, we don't really have age restrictions.
Okay. And the easiest, well, we'll kind of get into that a little bit down the line, but I was going to say, what's the easiest way to get a hold of you or contact you or receive these services right now during this crazy time?
Oh, well, there are a couple of different ways. One is you can call our phone number. It's 205-251-2223. And so that's one way to do that. You can also send us an email. You could send me an email. You could send Christy an email, and we'll make sure your information gets to the right person. Alex, I don't know if you have our email addresses up there, but mine is dan.kessler.
We're going to put those in the
up there. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Did you see the seals that are listed? Are they? Do you see them
in the chat?
Yes.
I do not see the chat links for the seals yet.
Okay, I'll work on it.
And sometimes
so you can. I was going to say another way you can call, but obviously email. But you also can go on our website. We have our application for services on the website as well. So that's something we've done since the pandemic.
It's nice to see that and hear that organizations are still being able to provide those services. And we'll talk about that in the CARES Act, some of the new services that have kind of come out there.
Right,
I did see
right.
on the website that Disability Rights and Resources is a United Way agency, and I wasn't sure exactly what that meant.
Oh, okay. Well, what that means is we've been a United Way agency since 1992. And for us, what that means is we do get funding from United Way of Central Alabama. And so we've also, as an agency, we're able to participate in their health insurance program, which for us as a relatively small nonprofit is a really big deal because it's not easy for smaller nonprofits to get health insurance for their staff. So that's a benefit we're able to provide our staff. We're also, as part of United Way, I see it, we go through a process. There's a review process with United Way every year where they have what they call a visiting allocation team. Well, we put together an application. It's a very extensive application we submit to United Way for funding. And then they come back and interview us, interview our board and staff about what we're doing, and so it's sort of I guess you might call it a seal of approval from United Way when we do get funding. But it's also we're also part of a bigger network of there's probably more than 80 United Way agencies here in Central Alabama with United Way of Central Alabama. So that's been so there are opportunities there for collaboration. But so there are a number of different, I think, benefits to us as a United Way of United Way Central Alabama agency. And it does, I think, for the general public. If you don't know anything if you've never heard of disability rights and resources, if you're new to town, you've probably heard of United Way. And so I think that gives, I think, for individuals who may be reaching out to us, that I think probably some level of assurance that we've sort of gone through that process with United Way in terms of answering a lot of questions and providing them with a lot of data. So there are certain assurances, I think. We go through a process with United Way, and all the agencies do, where we submit a number of what they call a stewardship process. And what that stewardship process is, it wants to make sure, that we're good stewards of the money. And so there are reams of documents that we submit to indicate that we are good stewards of the United Way fund.
And now that you lay that out there, it makes perfect sense. And I wasn't sure how that worked, but going through that with you just now, it's a no-brainer. It feels like it makes perfect sense to be a United.
And there's, Alex, and there's one other thing too. Not so much during the pandemic, but also during the campaign. It's a way for us to get our foot in the door at different businesses around the community to come out and talk about who we are and what we do. And so it's another way for us to do outreach.
And we've kind of been talking about behind the scenes, the vision, the mission, what Disability Rights and Resource stands for. And I'd like to get a little bit more into the specifics. And we're not going to dive into each one of the services provided, but if you can give an overview of maybe some of the 6 core services that someone could receive through Disability Rights and Resources.
Okay. Well, up until 2014, we had 4 core services, and that changed. Where there was what they call a 5th core service, and that actually, although I think that 5th core service, in my mind, I tell people it's actually 3 additional new core services. So, but anyway, so there may be some people who argue about that, but all the centers, if you go to any center for independent living, we offer the same core services. To receive federal funding, you have to provide all those 4 core services. And so those core services are, and Christy, you help me in case I leave anything out, but
I
it's
will.
peer support. We do advocacy. We do individual advocacy as well as systems advocacy. We provide information referral. And so that's, in fact, that service, information referral, is open to anybody in the country. We get calls from all over the country. We get calls from all the way from Boston to California. We get all kinds of telephone calls. But we also provide independent living skills training. We talked about, a little bit about goals, people setting goals. Some people may have certain goals that they want to achieve. We'll help them in teaching independent living skills. And we do have a computer lab here, which I'll be honest, isn't getting a whole lot of use right now, but outside the pandemic, although we can make it available upon appointment. But we do have a computer lab here where people can come in and conduct business. They can obviously do searches. If they want to write a letter to their legislator, they can do that. They can use the computer lab for that. If they want to learn more about resources, housing, or transportation, whatever the need might be, they can use our computer lab for that. Or our staff can teach people some very basic computer literacy skills, skills around the Excel and Word, as well as how to set up an email account. I think sometimes we make the assumption, well, everybody in the world has an email account, and that just isn't the case. And so that's something we can do as well. So that's independent living skills training. And so on top of that, then we have transition. And Alex, this is the new service, what I call new services. Transition, that is assisting people transition from nursing homes to the community or other kinds of congregate living facilities. Christy's working with some people right now, and she'll probably talk about that with CARES Act.
Yeah.
How we're using CARES Act money to do that. We're also working with youth transition, that is working with youth who are no longer in school, who want to, as you probably know, a lot of young people will fall through the cracks. But so what we try to do is work with those younger people so that doesn't happen. And so we'll work with those young people to help them achieve their goals for independence. And then we also do work with what we call, I guess, probably the simplest way of describing it is preventing people from going into congregate living facilities. So if people have the supports and resources, that they need to remain in the community, we'll work with those individuals so that they can remain in the community. So that takes with that transition services, I think a lot of times we'll fold in a number of those other core services that we provide, the peer support, the advocacy, the information referral, the skills training. Now, on top of that, then, we also have an employment network, which I had mentioned, and that's for individuals who are Social Security beneficiaries who want to go to work. And so those would be individuals who are ticket holders. They can reach out to us, and our staff can work with them in helping them achieve their employment goals. Then we also have another program that gets a lot of use, and that's our home modification program. We have a huge demand for home modification services, where we go into people's homes to make them accessible. Now, we are able to do, I think, probably a significant amount of work in the city of Birmingham we've had an agreement with the city of Birmingham since about 1991. And so in the city of Birmingham alone, I would say we've modified well over 1,000 homes to make them accessible, doing
Oh,
things
wow.
like building wheelchair ramps, making doors wider, installing some accessible features in bathrooms, things of that nature. So those I guess are their core services, plus the employment and the other work that we do with the home modification. And then Christy is going to be talking about CARES Act. And then also as part of this, we do work. We're also affiliated with the Southeastern ADA Center, based in Atlanta. They're actually affiliated with Syracuse University, but we are the Alabama affiliate for the Southeastern ADA Center. And so people want training and technical assistance around the ADA, they can reach out to us. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell, Alex.
Well, that is quite a big nutshell. It feels like quite the gamut of services that you guys do provide to the community. And I imagine, and you kind of touched a little bit on it there, but when somebody comes in looking for a specific service, a lot of times some of the other services will kind of be intertwined with that in what they're looking for and helping them reach their goal. So it's kind of a cross-service solution, not a solution, but work that is done. And I'm going to kind of put you on the spot here a little bit, but what would you say is the service that is most readily requested?
Well, it's kind of hard to say that's just one service, right? Because so many of our services are intertwined. Because if you come to Disability Rights and Resources and our staff is, providing peer support, just sort of naturally, advocacy comes up, and learning different skills come up, and information referral will come up. But if you were to, to answer your question though, Alex, I would say at the top would be peer support. People are looking for a place to talk to their peers and to assist them in problem solving and in working through what they have going on in their lives. But also to have a space where they feel comfortable. Also, I would also have to say, if ask me what number two would be, I'd say, home modification. We get a lot of referrals for the home modification program as well. And of course, right now, CARES Act is we're getting a very large number of referrals for that program, which I think is indicative of the environment that we're in right now with the pandemic.
Let's start to transition into the CARES Act, because I'm not very familiar with the CARES Act. Mrs. Stanley, if you could kind of give us just an overview of what the CARES Act is and what that means for DRR and the community in Alabama.
Sure. Well, first of all, let me say we have a great team at DRR, from our management to our staff, that really rallied together to put a program into place quickly to benefit the community and individuals during this pandemic time who are in need. So I wanted to say that first. The big thing is our CARES Act program is open to anyone with a significant disability. We encourage them to go to our website and apply for or fill out our application for services. The areas that we're covering right now within our guidelines is housing, technology, disability-related equipment, and we're proud to say that we have formed a partnership with M4A, and we're working with them on the Meals on Wheels program. So we're offering those 4 areas, to be able to provide and get people help that they need.
And so the CARES Act was kind of, I just want to make sure I have a good grasp of it. During this pandemic, there was extra money that needed to be given to support these communities that needed a little bit more help. And so the federal government was saying, hey, we recognize that, we hear you, and we're going to call it the CARES Act, but this money is supposed to go to these specific populations for whatever you guys decide is most important for these communities. Is that kind of the general understanding there?
It is, and that's why we were so happy to jump into action and put everything into place. And as to date, we've probably helped over right around 160 individuals in just a matter of months. And that wasn't an easy task, because we take each individual that fills out the application, we treat their needs. We don't just, again, it goes back to consumer control, and we work on a case-by-case basis. So we have to take the time to understand what their need is and how we can help them with, within our guidelines.
160 people, that is quite a bit, considering that there is no one size fits all. There's not like a funnel that you just like, okay, yeah, your application's been accepted, here you go. This is the solution, but you actually have to sit down one-on-one and design that, which is time consuming. And it's very rewarding, but it does take a little bit of time.
I do want to say,
well,
when they fill out the go ahead, Dan.
Well, and Alex, if I could just say, I think Christie has just done an outstanding job, and working with Elizabeth, who's the supervisor, our programs coordinator. The applications come to Elizabeth, and then she gets them to initial phase. Christie starts from there, and I think Christie has just done an outstanding job in helping individuals get what they need to the CARES Act program. And she's has a new staff member.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. We have new one.
And she has a new staff. We have a new staff member, Jenny Lux, who's working with Christie on the CARES Act program.
So you guys,
but all of our staff from the very beginning were very, very involved. All of our staff, I think, were very involved at the very beginning, and it just got to the point where the demand was so great, we had to bring somebody else on to dedicate their time just to the CARES Act.
That's a positive thing, to be able to help a large amount of people, that you have to bring on more people to support that. That is an awesome thing.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes.
I have a few questions about, we mentioned that there's no one size fits all. Is there room for more applicants currently?
Yes. Yes, we're still open. Our applications are open, still online. Encourage people, to apply. That's what we're here for, to help. I tell you, one of the things that we have really been hit with, people asking for housing assistance. We all know how housing is anyway, but right now people are really struggling. And so housing has been a top request, and we help with rent or mortgage that's past due or current that they're needing a little help with. And then the next thing has really been like Dan was talking about, people in a transition. We have helped several individuals, and in the process of helping several individuals still today, transition out of a nursing home, back home with their families, or back to their own home as well. And we were able to do that by being able to purchase the necessary equipment that they may need, or, just different resources that they may need to make that move. And we're very happy about that.
And I was just going to ask, I'm glad that you provided a few examples there, because a lot of times I'll hear of, things that the government or the state are doing, and I'm unsure if it's for either me or my family member that I help take care of. And is there a good place to go to see if those services would be available, if someone was watching this and they're thinking, well, I do have some difficulty in that right now, but I'm not sure if this is the right place?
They need to go to our website, and they'll fill out, when they go to our website, they'll go to the services tab, and they'll fill out the application for services. And that list is all the programs and core services that we offer. But CARES Act is also on there as well. And so that's the best place to start. And then, like I said, they'll need to have been affected by COVID. This money that we have been allotted to use is COVID related. And I guess we all know we've all been affected in some way. But we want to make sure that we are using it, as Dan said, as good stewards and pursuing those in the most need. You talked about examples. I do want to mention one other example is we're very happy about as well. Right before Christmas, we were able to help an individual who was living in their car with a significant disability during, and it was rather cold during that time. We were able to offer him this assistance, and he was approved. So we were able to put him in a hotel for a little over a month with these funds and get him the resource to work with another community partner of ours to find permanent housing. So it was a very much of a blessing to be able to do that, to take someone out of that rim and put them somewhere safe till they can find permanent housing. So
that's amazing.
And another thing, let me mention this. Another thing is we don't want individuals that come to us to think that we just stop once we help them financially in some way. If that's the case, we have a whole group behind us and a team here to help, like Dan was saying, with our core services. We want to see them get to where they are now and further. We want to see whatever they want for their life to come true. And so we have the team in place to help get them there.
And from what I really took from that is the CARES Act can really help individuals and families in a lot of different ways, but it has to be that you're experiencing these new hardships because of COVID.
Yes.
There needs to be clearly stated and maybe some documentation or proof that this is something new this year in the past COVID pandemic era.
Right. I mean, it definitely is new to us. It's not something that we have all the time. And we do want to make sure that everybody understands we don't just give cash out. We don't just hand over money. We're here to help for the long run. So we don't just say, here you go. We want to help them. Say they're late on their mortgage. Okay, well, let's discuss how we got there. How can we help you, further? Once we help you pay this amount, are you going to be able to get to the next level? And that's where our peer support group advocacy and different things comes into play. And IL skills, budgeting. There's just a lot of areas there. And that's why I say this is definitely a team effort.
I'm going to throw out a scenario, and I know you're not going to make a conclusive decision or don't want to say that on here, but I have a friend who is a father of a child that has disability, and they are looking for some housing, been staying with some friends and what have you, but they're looking for a more permanent thing. And if it's not found, they it's going to be hard for them. Is that something that I would encourage them to apply for in that situation?
I would, and let me tell you why. If we need to discuss how they got to where they are. Was the father negatively affected by COVID? Did he lose his job and the ability to maintain housing for his child? And then we also need to see what benefits the child. Is the child going to benefit from this housing, safety, medical needs, all of these things? That goes back to. But I definitely would suggest that, because the idea behind this, the father would be applying, the child would be, but how it would work, the father would receive the services on the child's behalf, because we want that child to be able to grow up and become an independent person in our society. And if we have to help when they're young to do that, then that's what we need to do.
I'm going to encourage
Alex,
that friend to apply. Yes, Mr. Kessler.
I would just like to add to what Christy said was um, the all three federally funded centers for independent living are getting CARES Act funds. So we have a 33 county service area that we're able to cover with our CARES Act. Then the Center for Independent Living in Montgomery also has CARES Act funding. That's Independent Rights and Resources. The Center for Independent Living in Mobile, the Mobile Independent Living Center, also has CARES Act funding, and we divided up the state, and so depending upon which county you live in, you would reach out to a particular Center for Independent Living.
Gotcha. You got to make sure you're filling out the right
And that,
applications.
yeah, and
But
that
if you
should
don't
be
know, you can
as
call
I
us.
know.
Yeah, and it's on our application online, as Christy said. But also, look, if they have any questions, they can call our office, and our staff does a great job in getting you through to the right people.
I'd like to talk a little bit about that application process. Sometimes when I hear application, I'm filling out insurance applications sometimes for a provider, and it's like, geez, a bunch of paperwork, and I'm not quite sure about this. And I feel like sometimes it can be overwhelming. What does that application process look like for disability rights and resources in general?
Do you want me to take that, Dan?
Sure, go ahead, Christy.
We have made it really easy for individuals to apply with us. We don't ask a lot of questions. They self-identify their disability. We don't really ask much more than that as far as documentation goes. And so we really wanted to simplify it so individuals could get the services they need or request help in. So we're proud that, we all have to have paperwork and documentation and stuff, but our application process is fairly simple and direct and, easy to understand. So we're happy about that.
That's always good to hear from the end consumer end, the ease of use there, and not having to jump over barriers or find documentation that may be somewhere else. Or
Right.
that's very nice. And kind of an
Well,
overview, is there? Yes, sir.
Yeah, Alex, and I was just going to say, going back, and this all goes back to living philosophy, and the whole living philosophy grew out of the non-medical model, and so we don't ask you to jump through a lot of hoops, provide us with a lot of medical documentation, things like that. So we try to make the consumer experience as simple as possible.
I think that speaks volumes about the organization. Is there any cost to the consumer in any of these services?
Oh, absolutely not. No. We don't charge for any services or anything in that nature.
That's always good to hear. So if you walk in the door, you don't have to pull out your credit card.
No.
Yeah.
Well, I always get nervous about the word free, but because that implies that there's not much value, but the word, it doesn't cost you anything. It is time and there's a lot of effort and resources
Right.
there, but definitely don't undervalue what's there because it's at no cost to you.
Well, Alex, one thing I would say about that is, but we do require the people to make an investment.
Yes.
It's not in money, but in terms of taking the time to be part of a partnership and towards achieving their independent living goals.
They have to be present and put forth the effort. Have you ever had a time where it's like, yes, this person could receive these services, but they're just not putting forth the effort? I know that's hard,
yes.
But
that happens from time to time.
It's not regular, because most people that come to us, they want to be a part of it. That's why they're coming. So it's rare that that happens. There's usually some kind of life issue that got in the way, and they may drop off for a while, but then they normally come back. So we're happy when that happens because they're taking the initiative to make their life better.
Mm-hmm. And Elizabeth Patton has been putting some links in the chat for us, including quite a bit of contact information, which has been great. Thank you, Elizabeth Patton there. And Heather Sims says, yes, indeed, right on, Christy, talking about how the staff have done a great job with the CARES Act. And Elizabeth Patton says, well put, Dan, talking about the investment needed to come to the table as a partnership there. I would like to just point out that I think Disability Rights and Resources has a great website. For anybody that's going to be clicking on these links or going to the website in the future, it's very navigable. I hope I said that right. And I feel like the resources on there are very quick and easy to get to. One thing that I would like to point out specifically is I've talked with a few people about getting in touch with my local representatives for advocacy, systems advocacy during the legislative session. And they go to, the links kind of go to a big Montgomery website that is a little tricky to navigate. But when I go to DRR's website and I click on, who is my representative, it pulls up a page that I just type in my zip code, and then it gives me who my representative is. So I think that's kind of how I feel about the ease of use and not making it difficult, but making it as easy as possible for the consumer and the end consumer there. So I applaud you guys for having that type of feel when it comes to your online presence. And in being in your offices, I know that that's also in person. I would like to talk a little bit about the home modifications that you were mentioning and some partnerships that you have in the community. And if you're open to other partnerships, if somebody was thinking about volunteering, how that would happen.
Yes, we're very interested in those partnerships, and please have individuals contact us with that. But we have done some work, with volunteer groups here. One, for example, is Trinity United Methodist Church. They've been fantastic. We have some volunteers volunteer crew that they'll send out, and we have the funding to purchase the materials, and they can help us out with the labor. And so those are the kind of and we've had some other churches as well, other businesses that have helped us. And so it's been a really great to have those kinds of partnerships, because we can't do everything on our own. You've heard the saying, it takes a village. Well, it does take that sometimes. And so we do have to rely upon the groups such as Trinity and others to help us in those endeavors. And so it's so if there's anybody who is part of that group, be it a church group or a civic group or maybe part of their business, or maybe as individuals they have some skill sets they'd like to contribute, we'd like to talk to them.
Yeah, if the conversation comes up, maybe at a local church group of, what are we doing this quarter to give back to the community, or even at a holiday, if you have a family member that is very skilled in those types of things and they're wanting to give back, definitely contact Disability Rights and Resources. They do great work, and I've seen some of the pictures of the ramps that you guys have put up, and that's life-changing for somebody.
Well, it really is, and I think the great thing about that is they can have, we think, a wonderful volunteer experience, because they're coming in, they're contributing. Volunteers are contributing to a particular individual in the community, and so literally by the end of the day, after that ramp has been built, they see immediate results, and so I think they go away from that experience with a really positive experience.
That's as quick as an instant gratification as you can get in volunteer work.
Yeah, certainly. Yes, certainly is.
And Chris Jones says, we've had great volunteers from CarMax, First Baptist Gardendale, and Pell
Mm-hmm.
City First Methodist as well. So you guys have quite the umbrella of volunteer network there.
Yeah. Chris is our staff member who works on that program as well as the city program that we have, and so he's he's always I think you probably agree, he's always looking for good qualified, reliable volunteers.
Speaking of the team at Disability Rights and Resources, are you guys looking to add new team members, or are there any job openings currently?
Well, we currently have no paid positions open. However, we're always looking for people to be part of our mission, part of our team. And so for example, we have on every Friday, we have the Alabama Disability Action Coalition, and Nicole Watkins and Elizabeth Patton on our staff are the ones who are taking the lead on that. And that's every Friday at 1 p.m. If somebody would like to participate in that, we'd love to have them. We're always looking to expand that. We're also looking for people. Chris Adams has been working on a peer mentor program, which, by the way, funded by our friends at the Alabama Council on Developmental Disabilities. We have a peer mentor program, and so those would be volunteer positions for any individual who would like to serve as a peer mentor. Or if you have anybody who's listening in or know of somebody who'd like to be working with a mentor, we'd love to hear from them as well.
You mentioned every Friday at 1 p.m. Is that happening now over like a Zoom or an internet call?
Yeah, well, we're using Teams right now, but yes, it is done virtually.
I was going to ask more about that, but Nicole Watkins beat me to it, and it's already in the chat.
Oh,
the link to join for Fridays.
All right, yeah.
I'll
tell you what,
I'm telling
Alex,
you.
They are.
Yeah, our staff are on top of things. Let me tell you that.
I feel intimidated right now. They're beating me to my own questions.
Oh, no.
Well, we're going to kind of wrap up here as we're closing in on an hour, but I always like to ask, is there anything that we haven't talked about that you think someone listening, whether that's an individual or a family member, could really benefit from hearing?
I can say this. We're in a time of a pandemic. There is no need to feel like you're alone. You don't have to struggle. There are people out here ready to help you get to where you need to be or want to be. And all you have to do is reach out to us, and we're here to help. So I just definitely encourage that anyone that is feeling, down and out, don't feel that way. There's a lot of resources out in the community. We can help you find them. So definitely take advantage of our services, and we welcome and would love to have you be a part of our team.
I could not have put it better. Thanks, Christy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I appreciate you guys spending the time with us this morning and sharing the great work that you guys do. And kind of a sneak peek, we've been talking back and forth, and we hope to do quite a bit more broadcasts with Disability Rights and Resources, highlighting some of the more individualized services that we went over today. And I'm extremely excited about what that looks like in the next few months, maybe half of a year kind of thing. So at this point, we are going to go ahead and end the broadcast. And the easiest way to do it is actually we'll give a wave to the community and everybody watching in here, just saying hi and bye. And then you can go ahead and click out of the window the vMix call. And thank you once again for being here with us this morning.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alex. Thanks for everything you guys are doing.